I was going to give you guys a choice between what was published in Samizdat and something new, but I think I'm just going to go with something a little sexy. So a little backstory, and I'm a little squirmy with the sincerity of this, but it's from my novel. Backstory: the narrator is a woman who's run away with a circus, who has a severe stutter and can't really speak. She is learning to lion tame, or to tame lions from the man in this part. So in the scene before this happens, they're trading scars back and forth. So right before this, she showed a scar back here, and he's reacting to it. So, all right, here we go. Impressive. He smoothed my hair back in place. It bled much. I nodded, remembering with a sick pride how horrified Bernie and Papa had been at the sight of me. In challenge, he rolled up his left pant leg and displayed it. I bent down for a closer look and almost gasped. A large chunk of flesh was missing from his calf. He laughed at my alarm. Not pretty, huh? My first step. Turned my back on a tiger. He gave me this as a warning to be more attentive. I studied the sinews of scar tissue, the faint imprint of teeth. I reached out and traced the concavity of negative space where leg muscle used to be. My fingertips nearly brushed the gnarled skin. I shuddered and looked up. He nodded in satisfaction. In response, I put my leg up on a training barrel and started to unbuckle my boot. He raised his eyebrows, his gaze moving between me and my leg with a bewildered smirk on his face. I rolled my eyes and gestured for him to turn around. He bowed his head and with palms open spun around until his back was to me. I waited a minute to make sure he wasn't peeking. Then I hiked up my skirt and pulled my stocking down. When I was ready, I clapped my hands and waved him over for closer inspection. He bent low, examined the jagged tear hooking around my kneecap. I could feel the warmth of his breath on my leg, his nose so close it nearly brushed against my hemline. I braced myself for the possibility of his touch, held my breath and my body still. But his hands remained firmly clasped behind his back. A veteran, huh? He saluted me with a bemused grin. I shook my head, confused. Barbed wire? I nodded, still uncertain whether he was poking fun. Many carried that wound back from the trenches. You are a brave soldier. I blushed. Mine was from crawling under Mr. Johnson's fence to steal an early season apple. Well, since we are comrades, he unbuttoned his shirt and pushed it down to reveal his collarbone and right shoulder. I stepped off the barrel and moved closer. A thick line dug into the skin beneath the bone, as if underlining it in pink, tender flesh. My remembrance from the front, it goes all the way through. He turned around and dropped his shirt more to reveal the exit wound. I stood on my toes to get a better look. My eyes flipped down to the hard triangle of his shoulder blade. A stripe of scar tissue cut across it, peeking out from his shirt's edge. I reached out and touched it with my fingertip. Mordecai flinched and spun around, pulling his shirt around him as if cold. He looked like a spooked horse, ready to kick. He stared at me, his nostrils flaring. Not part of the show, my dear. I stood frozen. He closed his eyes, shut them tightly. I stayed still and waited. He exhaled slowly, the tension easing out of his eyelids. Then he met my gaze with a forced smile. His eyes still looked guarded. But we performers must give the audience what is wanted, yes? He seemed suddenly tired as he turned around again and dropped his shirt from his shoulders. Dozens of slashes crisscrossed his back, knitting together in a tight, coarse weave. From a different kind of war. I stepped toward him slowly and steadily, the way he had coached me with the cats. His back expanded and collapsed with the quickness of his breath. My hands shook as I traced the bumpy lines stretching across his back. I wanted to kiss them. Instead, I squeezed his arm and turned him around. I held on to both of his arms and positioned him to stand still. Then I turned around myself, my back to him this time, and began unfastening my dress. He was silent as I pulled my slip up over my head to reveal my own war wounds. I had never undressed for a man before, but in that moment, I wasn't scared. I just didn't know what to do with my arms. They seemed like they were in the way. So I grabbed onto the bars of the cage to steady myself. I was tempted to steal a glance at his face, to try to decipher what he might be thinking, but was ashamed to look at him, in case he didn't understand, or worse, thought my body ugly. Instead, I closed my eyes and imagined what he saw. The upraised lines made by the leather strap, the chunks of flesh gouged by the buckle. I bit my lip against the pain of remembering. I opened my eyes when I felt his hands on me. I never heard him approach, just felt his fingers inching up my waist, light and tentative, spreading out across the latticework of scar tissue. I dropped my hands from the cool metal and let them fall by my side. He didn't ask what had happened or who had done this to me. He didn't promise to keep me safe or swear to avenge my battered flesh. Instead, he moved me around to face him. I covered my body reflexively with my arms and looked down, closing my eyes against tears. His hands angled my face upwards. Lips brushed against one eyelid, then the other, soaking up the saltiness with his kisses. I opened my eyes and met his. I saw the pain there. I reached up and grabbed his face and brought it closer to mine. He closed his eyes. I kissed one eyelid, then the next. Then I kissed him on the mouth and pulled the shirt from his body. We wrapped our arms around each other as our hands explored our scars on the body of the others in that empty lion cage outside of Athens, Texas. The smell of my blood roused the lions from their slumber, and they began pacing back and forth against the bars. Their growls lent new wildness to our lovemaking. I clawed new scratches into Mordecai's back and bit his shoulder to keep my cat moans quiet. Afterward, we lay in each other's arms on our bed of newly soiled straw and watched their live feline bodies until sunrise. Thank you.